On June 21st, the brother to the Samsung Galaxy S4 was released on AT&T. The Samsung Galaxy S4 Active packed very similar features such as a 1.9 GHz quad-core CPU, a 5-inch display, and Android 4.2, but it brought a ruggedized shell to the Galaxy S4 line. 2 months after the launch, how's it holding up? I'm Aaron Baker from PhoneDog.com, and this is the Samsung Galaxy S4 Active 2 months later. On June 21st, the Samsung Galaxy S4 Active launched on AT&T, joining the Galaxy S4 line of products and bringing another Galaxy S4 device to AT&T. Specifications-wise, it's very similar to the Galaxy S4, including the same 2,600 mAh battery, 4G LTE connectivity, 1.9 GHz quad-core Snapdragon 600 CPU, 2 GB of RAM, 16 GB of internal storage, and Android 4.2.2 Jelly Bean with TouchWiz. Where it differs a couple of different areas, it only has an 8-megapixel camera instead of a 13-megapixel camera, and it makes up for that with a ruggedized build that's very different and a little bit more durable than the Galaxy S4. You can tell the sides are a little bit larger and easier to grip, and on the back you'll notice the two-tone color here with the ruggedized top and bottom, and the bolts up here at the top to prove that industrial look. It meets IP67 certification, making this thing the phone to get if you're going to drop, scratch, scuff, or heck, even if you have kids on AT&T. It's the device to get. But 2 months later, is it worth it? Well, you know, it depends on what you want out of a device like anything in this mobile space, but I'll tell you what I found out after working with this device for 2 months on and off. One, functionality-wise, very similar to the Galaxy S4. In fact, I would say virtually unchanged from the Galaxy S4, with the exception of the 8-megapixel camera and the lack of dual-shot capability in the camera. It really is very similar all around the Galaxy S4. You notice the shape overall is a little bit different. It's a little bit less curved up top, and obviously the two-tone color here really adds something to the device. Whether it adds or takes away, I'll leave that to you to decide. It's your personal preference after all. But you know what it is, a different design, a different look and feel, and the capacitive buttons down here, the physical buttons, are different as well. Just overall, it looks and feels different in the hand, and it doesn't feel like a traditional Samsung device. Whether that's good or bad, again, I'll leave that up to you, but I have noticed that after working with it. But functionality-wise, very similar. The overall fluidity is the same. You get the same Android 4.2 with TouchWiz, and you get the same goodies, including, we'll go into my device so you can take a look here, the same motions and gesture stuff, including air gesture, palm motion, and then down here with air view as well, you got information preview, progress preview, speed dial preview, and more. And just by seeing information preview, for example, I can turn on, you get that same feature that you get over on the Galaxy S4. I'll come into gallery and I'll go into the gallery. Actually, you know what? I'll go in another way. Let's go back here and go in right here, and we'll go back, and you can see by pressing, or not even pressing, but holding my finger over the screen, I can access a preview without touching. All those benefits here on the Galaxy S4 Active along with Watch On. But the thing that I do notice about this device that I really like over the Galaxy S4, the screen. Now at first glance, it's the same 5-inch display. It is a 1080p HD display, but it's not an AMOLED display, or not a Super AMOLED display. It's actually an LCD, and as such, colors are a little bit more realistic on this device than on the Galaxy S4. You especially notice it when you're somewhere like messaging, for example, where you look at this versus the Galaxy S4 and you compare them side by side. The whites here are significantly more white than on the Galaxy S4. I always notice kind of a yellowish hue, and that's just what happens with an AMOLED or Super AMOLED display, the way the color saturation works on those displays. Over here, it's very true and very white, whereas over on the Galaxy S4, it's got kind of a yellowish tint to it. Display is very important to you. The Galaxy S4 Active is going to be your device, and I think as a display buff, you'll see that when you look at both of these side by side in the store. The downside, as I talked about at the very beginning of the video, it only has an 8-megapixel camera. I didn't preserve the 13-megapixel shooter that the Galaxy S4 has, and it loses that dual-shot capability as well. So if you're in the camera here, you don't have that out of the box. Depends on how important that is to you, and you still have most of the same modes, including night, sports, panorama, eraser, HDR, animated photo, drama, and more. The other thing I want to talk about on this device, the IP67 certification. This device is good if you just drop it, and you're a regular dropper, you're a serial dropper when it comes to your phone, or you have kids that like to mess with your device. This is IP67 certified, and despite the snafu that AT&T and Samsung had with these devices initially, those seem to be resolved, and people are pretty happy overall with their Galaxy S4 Active. There's no real complaints other than those occasional reports of some of them not being as IP67 certified as they would have liked. Keep in mind, IP67 certification only extends to a certain element. This thing is not going to survive if you drop it into a 50-foot puddle of water called the ocean, for example, or a very, very deep swimming pool. It's not going to survive in that type of terrain. That said, great for a lot of people. Now let's take a look at Quadrant Standard here and see how it performs. We'll go into Quadrant Standard 2 months in and see how this sucker performs. Still very fast all around. The concern that a lot of people have, or a lot of stock kind of diehard Android people have with this device, is it is a little bit more of a niche product. You got this, you have the Samsung Galaxy S4, which is arguably their iconic device, their iconic Galaxy S device. That thing has been around the world and back. Lots of people are carrying it. As a result, that thing is going to get updated faster, be it Android 4.3, be it Android 5.0. There's going to be more R&D put behind the product of the Galaxy S4 than the Galaxy S4 Active. So keep that in mind. If you're somebody that wants the latest software update, you like that recent update of Android 4.3 or 5.0, and that's very important to you. You want it as soon as it comes out, and you want to have the first Samsung phone to get it. I'd recommend either the Note line or the Galaxy S line, because right now those are the two flagship lines. Over here, 12,305 on Quadrant Standard, so it continues to perform fast. 2 months later, still impressive all around. Who this device is for? Somebody that's hard on their phones thanks to the IP67 certification. Someone that wants an LCD display over a Super AMOLED display for better color quality. Who this isn't for? Somebody that wants the most recent software updates. This thing most likely will not get it before or even around the Galaxy S4. Always take that with a grain of salt. Never quite know when software launches are going to come out, but if history is anything, any indicator, you may have an issue getting the most recent version of Android right when it comes out, whereas a device like the HTC One or the Galaxy S4, companies' flagship lines, companies traditionally put more dollars behind the flagship lines. Another con, only an 8-megapixel camera instead of a 13-megapixel camera that you see on the Galaxy S4. If you're camera buff, you need that dual shot capability, Galaxy S4 is going to be your device. Keep it locked on PhoneDog.com for more on the S4 Active. I'm on Twitter at PhoneDog_Aaron, and I'm on Facebook at Facebook.com/HiAaronBaker. Thanks for watching. More to come on the Galaxy S4 Active on PhoneDog.com.